Let's take a look at Saturn, because we haven't talked about Saturn yet. And we have Saturn in Leo. Saturn was the furthest planet out that we could see with the naked eye before we invented telescopes. Okay? So for a long time, the ancients had 7 planets, and Saturn was the last one they could see. Because Saturn is so far out, and because Saturn was a cold, dry planet, he was considered the anti-sun and the anti-moon. Okay? He's the Grim Reaper. You've heard me talk about this before. We made him into the Grim Reaper, folks. Okay? He's the one who says your time is done. In this chart, because Alysa Liu has Saturn in a sun-ruled sign, Leo, once again, we have a planet that's in detriment. Detrimental planets are there at the start, but you choose how you work with them. So let's look at another relationship in the chart. Before I go, though, Saturn's job, remember, is long-term goals, boundaries, staying focused, staying on track. He's the planet of adulting. So let's take a look at this interesting facet of the chart. We talked about relationships between planets, right? And we talked about how Alysa Liu has this planet in detriment over here with Mars, right? Mars and Taurus. Look at the relationship between Saturn and Mars. It's almost a 90-degree angle. We call that in astrology a square. When planets are at about a 90-degree angle to one another, there's some friction. There are some challenges involved between the two planets. Saturn is a planet that we often see for people who have to do the same thing over and over again. We often see it in the chart of scientists and doctors, for example, who have to redo experiments over and over again. We see it in the charts of musicians who have to practice over and over again, and athletes too. Okay, when you have to do something, make a long-term commitment to something, Saturn is the guy you want. Folks, I love Jupiter too, but Jupiter is not going to stick around long enough to get long-term projects done. You want to work with Saturn for that. In Alysa Liu's chart, you're going to see that there is a connection between Saturn and Mars. That friction, we call them hard aspects, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Hard aspects, the opposition and the square in particular, are things that help push you forward if you use the energy that way. They push you. So look what we've got. We've got somebody who is extremely motivated in the physical body, right? Someone who pushes and pushes and pushes. And we combine that with the tension of a planet that wants long-term goals. This is another powerhouse aspect in this chart, because in addition to giving her the physical drive to do what she does, Saturn gives us the long-term focus to say, nope, you got to do it again. Nope, you've got to do it again. And Cozy Curls, yes, I'm curious too if she came back from her hiatus when transiting Uranus was early in Taurus. For those of you who don't know, Uranus is about to go into Gemini, and Uranus spends about 7 years in a sign. Well, Uranus has been in Taurus for the last 7 years or so. And it would be really interesting when Uranus showed up around here in Alicia's chart and made this connection, and we're wondering if maybe that's when she decided to come back from the hiatus she had taken from skating. That would definitely be an interesting thing to look at another night to see, to get an idea of when that happened. Okay, but this gives you an idea about how astrologers kind of try to time things. In any case, with this connection, when you have something that is making a connection to one planet, it's also going to affect the other planet if the two planets are connected by an aspect. And so as things affect Mars, they also have an echo on Saturn, and vice versa. So Saturn and Mars are well connected in this chart, and so this is a powerhouse combination for someone who has to do the same physical activity over and over again. With the two planets in Virgo to drive the perfectionism to make it perfect. This chart is very, very well set up for someone who wants to do long-term sports. Now, does it mean that someone with this chart is going to be another Alysa Liu? No. Remember, it's all about how we live the chart, at what level we are living the chart. In Alysa Liu's case, she is really taking advantage of everything she has astrologically, and obviously it's been a success. She's done very well. But yeah, that Saturn-Mars connection, in addition to the Sun-Neptune connection, are both really helpful for what she is choosing to do. Now, if we had a chart with houses on it, we could look at the midheaven and we could see what her career looks like. We could see vocational potential. Obviously, we don't have that, so we can't. It's disappointing. A lot of the charts that we look at are not going to have a birth time. I really wish we could get a birth time for this one, folks. Unfortunately, we don't. But what you do find in charts of athletes is that many of them have Mars angular, meaning in the first house, the fourth house, the seventh house, and more importantly, up here in the 10th house or right behind the 10th house. Okay? I often see people who are athletes who have that set up. And speaking of Mars, it's not just athletes, folks. It's anyone who uses their body as part of their career. This is law enforcement folks. This is soldiers. This is bodybuilders, in addition to athletes. Okay? Because Mars is about the physical body. Mars also rules anybody who works with tools. So we often see Mars prominent in surgeons as well.